My name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. And this is one I should have gone to a lot sooner, but better late than never. So today I am reviewing Rising by Celeste Harte. This is the sequel to Conquest, an afro-futurism arranged marriage story. I have reviewed that one before, and I will be talking about spoilers from that, so if you would rather watch that review video, the link will be down in the description below. So this one picks up a little ways after the end of the last book, and admittedly, I might have let a little bit too much time pass between reading that book and this one because I realized as I started this one, I didn't remember a lot. I think a lot of my focus on that one was the arranged marriage itself. It is a slow burn romance, and Joshi at first is very resistant to it because, again, it's arranged. She has no say in it. And I mentioned in that one that I did appreciate the fact that Kamel wasn't just forcing her into it for his own interest, that there were actually mitigating circumstances around it that made it absolutely vital that he get her into a greater place of legal power, aka as the, I believe is pronounced Farisha or Farasha, so that the blood test that everyone gets on their 18th birthday that would have shown her to have mystical fire powers would not have put her in danger of death, because in this world, if you are found to have mystical fire powers, you mysteriously disappear. So he had to, like he was on a time crunch, had to marry her and get her to the point of basically legal safety before that happened, aka right after her 18th birthday. So that's an interesting dynamic to begin with, because Joshi, when she realized that, it already kind of turned the relationship on its head, and this one continues. Now, the reviews for the first one that I read through, a lot of them kind of talked about how, well, Joshi was so immature, and she was annoying, and da-da-da-da-da. But the thing is that she had only recently turned 18 and was already being forced into this marriage and into a palace, like a political position, basically against her will. Like, yeah, it makes total sense that she was acting up. But this book focuses a lot more on her personal arc, because it's a lot of her thinking that she can't really be this monarch, that she's not good enough for it, but realizing that someone has to do this, that a lot of people don't care about things the way they need to be cared about. They don't care about fighting back against the equalizers, aka the colonizers. They don't care about the dragons the way she does. And so it's basically her going, someone needs to be here in this position caring about this. I'm the one in here right now. So she's like gotta basically dig deep and become more than the 18-year-old girl that was forced into a marriage. She has to become the Farisha. She has to become that. And it's a really good character arc. I think there's still more arc to be had, but there's a lot of progress in this book. Also, her relationship with Kamel definitely progresses. She begins to learn more and more about him and why he did so many of the things that he did that in the last book looked like him being a tyrant, being this horrible person, but then she realizes just how much danger he's been in, and so all of the executions and all the fighting back has been for safety. You also get a lot more of the group dynamics where she feels more like a part of their group of rebels than she did before. She's not just the outsider coming in. She's now a proper rebel queen, which is a lot of fun. And she goes on cool missions. It's also nice. But in general, it's her becoming the queen she needs to be for this country, because there are some giant stakes coming, because this book did a great job of building the stakes. Unlike the last book, you see a little bit more of the other countries. Now, obviously, that last book didn't totally just take place in the palace. Joshi was born outside of it. She runs away at one point. But this one, they actually go on a diplomatic mission to another country and look into that. And they end up going to a different country and they look into that. So you get a lot more look into what the equalizers have done for and against other countries. You see what it is to be an equalized country and what it is to be rebel country. And in this world, the colonizers have mystical powers. Well, not really mystical powers. They stole stuff from dragons, and they can control the natural geographics of an area, basically killing natural resources. And they actually go to a rebel country, and you see the full extent of what they can do and the full extent of being a rebel country. And it ups the stakes, because Kasundi is probably going to become that. So it's like, oh crap, this is in the future. They have to convince an entire population of people to be okay with that, to fight the colonizers and save dragons. And also, then of course, they have to go and convince all of these dragon royalties, the literal dragons that are royal, to side with them. So like the stakes in this book are gigantic. Like they were already kind of big, but the expansion of the world and the world building in this one really built it up. And it's really nice world building. If you've been around my channel for a hot minute, you know my preferred form of world building is don't tell me until I need to know about it. Because if you give me a nice giant paragraph of text, all of that's going whoop the minute something cool in the plot happens. So they do it really well, mostly because the two are looking into their country's own history, and so the reader basically learns things as they learn things about drake bonds and dragons and exactly what happened and how do we find them. The only issue I would say with this book, and it wasn't even enough to take off a full star, is the pacing can get a little weird. The first book is all about finding one dragon king, the first one. And then this one, they're trying to find 3. They actually, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but the ways that they find them aren't necessarily very linear. Like it seems like they only get little drips of information and then suddenly a ton of information. And it feels like we're like, oh crap, we gotta wrap this up. Here's more info. But again, it wasn't enough to take off like a full star. I don't really do half stars. I don't see the point in them. In my mind, if you're going based on half stars, why aren't you just rating out of 10 instead of 5? Because it's not like you can even put half stars on any of the major reviewing sites to begin with. Anyway, not enough to take off a star or even half a star, but that was just a little bit of a thing in the middle. However, the ending itself really picked up nicely. The last 50 pages especially. I love looking at those little throwaway lines, or lines that are supposed to be throwaway lines that protagonists make, but then you're like, oh no, wait, that means something. That's hinting at something. That's foreshadowing. Oh crap. And it builds up for like the last 50 pages until the thing. Obviously, I'm not spoiling it. I'll talk about it in the next review. But it leads off to a nice, fat, juicy cliffhanger that makes you want to read the next one. And also, what I liked about this book is you get some chapters from Kamel's POV. And it's awesome. You learn a lot more about him. Of course, he talks about his pining for Joshi, which is what you really want in a slow burn romance. Okay, I am here for the mutual pining. But he is growing a lot as well, trying to become essentially a much more personable leader as opposed to the almost tyrant king he was seen as in the first book. And he needed to be seen as that in the first book because there was a lot more danger, but now he essentially has to earn the trust and love of an entire country of people and convince them that, yes, they should do all these things that he's asking them to do and not force him to abdicate the throne. Again, giant stakes, a lot of character growth. I think it's safe to say I liked this book even more than the first one. It took what made that one great and added more. It had more of the dragons, okay, which is always good. More dragons, more dragon riding. You see Joshi and Comet writing a lot more, figuring out the Drake bond, just any kind of speculative fiction that adds more dragons. It's always good. Always love that. So I really enjoyed this one. It gave a lot of what the first one gave and a little bit more beyond. I'm excited for the next one. I do not know exactly how long this series is supposed to be. I can't remember if it's supposed to be a trilogy or something longer. My gut instinct right now is that it's going to be longer than a trilogy because, again, the stakes are so huge that I can't see this being wrapped up simply in one other book. If you're talking like a literal war against colonists, like that's more than one other book, right? Regardless, I would definitely love to keep reading it. So Celeste, if you're up for handing out another review copy, I will try not to wait as long. That's the best I can promise. Even with how much I've been picking up my review reading, nothing is set in stone. Regardless, I gave this book 5 stars. Highly enjoyed this. Really need to find me some more afro-futurism. And in general, I also need to find me some more arranged marriage. It's just a great mix. As for my open or closed to reviews status, right now, still closed. But still on track for getting open for 2022. Fingers crossed, I've got like one more book I think that I really need to get done before I try to open again. But maybe I can make it work. Maybe. With nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.